I want to talk about something. Now, this topic has been bugging me for a while. A couple of weeks ago, I went to a game day with some of my friends who are completely new to Airsoft, so noobs. And that day, I noticed that a lot of noobs actually move like COD NPCs sometimes. And ever since then, this thought and this idea never left my mind, and I kept on noticing it every game day I went to. And so finally, I've decided that I wanted to make a video to help Airsoft beginners to move better in Airsoft. Now, firstly, I want to make something really clear. There are a lot of channels that can explain CQB way better than me. For once, there's Orion Training Group. Fabulous channel, fabulous lads, fabulous information. However, they operate in the realm of reality, where 5.56 rounds can go through drywall, or thin wood wall, or tarps. In Airsoft, all of that would be considered cover, not just concealment. If you don't know what that is, concealment just saves you from being seen, and cover saves you from being turned into red mist. So that obviously dictates the tactics used in each environment. In real life, you try to be as fast as possible at a threshold because it is not considered as cover. But in Airsoft, anything is basically cover, so you can be as fast or slow as you want to, and you can peek in a way that you want to peek, because in real life it doesn't matter if your elbow and your arm is sticking out a bit, because if they shoot through the wall, they also will hit you in your head. But in Airsoft, this matters because that is the only part of you that can be hit, so you want to minimize that part as much as possible. So, what have I actually been seeing on the fields? Well, for once, I've seen the typical shooter NPC movement style, where your rifle is constantly shouldered and you're constantly looking down these sights like a NPC in a video game. Another point that I've been seeing is that people walk around with their gun all the way down, not even ready to engage an enemy if they see one, not even in under a second. And thirdly, I've seen some really weird stances where people literally shoot in a crisscross position, or just with their feet and knees together like a uwu girl, which is obviously not preferred, because you firstly want a stable shooting position, and secondly want to be agile, and having your feet together or crisscrossed will just make you fall over if you want to dodge an enemy. Now, if you listen to me closely, you might say, you just said one, you shouldn't have your gun up all the time, but then secondly, you said you should have your gun up more. That's stupid, right? Let me get more into detail on that. The problem with constantly having your rifle up and looking down the sights is pretty self-explanatory. It strains your muscles massively, because especially your shoulders aren't that strong, and the shoulders are the main thing that holds your rifle up. This will get tiring quickly, making you move slower and less keen to take action against an enemy instead of just sitting passively in cover, which obviously reduces the fun part of Airsoft. Secondly, always shouldering your rifle for many reasons makes you worse at the game. For one, you're more awkwardly moving, and secondly, you're most of the time presenting more of a target to your enemy than you should when peeking. Now, what I mean with awkwardly moving? Well, this kind of goes into physics, to where when your gun is completely extended and you turn, your body isn't used to this kind of weight distribution, making it a little bit more awkward. You can learn to move with this faster the more you use your gun, obviously, but especially in CQB environments, where you don't have a lot of space, you also tend to move slower because you don't want to bump into things with your rifle fully extended outwards. But then secondly, you also don't want your gun all the way down or just hanging off your side, which I've seen people do as well whilst going into rooms. I'm not even kidding, sadly, because then you'd be way too slow to engage an enemy. So what is the middle? What is the fine middle here? Well, in my opinion, the method that I use is the 3-point method, where I have 3 points for indexing my rifle. One is my non-shooting hand, and secondly is my shooting hand, and thirdly is my shoulder, or the top of my shoulder. And these 3 points help me distribute the weight of the rifle more evenly. While it's not completely angled upwards, it's also not completely angled downwards. So it's pretty fast to get into a shooting position to engage an enemy. And the massive pro is it's not as tiring as constantly having your gun up and shouldered. Stance. Why should you have a wide stance? Why can't you just stand how you want to stand? Because Airsoft rifles don't have recoil, right? Well, having a more stable or wider stance helps you be more agile when trying to avoid, for example, enemy fire, and it also just gives you more of a stability, so you don't eat shit when trying to move because you stumble over your own feet because they're so close together or even crisscrossed. And all of the things that I've just listed mainly go into one specific topic. How do you do that the right way? Well, I want to show you with the example of a wall, but I don't have a wall in the middle of my room. So I'm just going to make one with the power of video editing. Cool, now that we have our wall, let's give you an example of how a noob would peek. Now, keep in mind this is massively exaggerated, with all the mistakes made at once, really harshly, just to show you what I mean. As you can see, the foot comes first, so I present my foot to the enemy before I can even see or fire at said enemy. Second comes my chicken wing. Again, I present a huge target for the enemy. And then finally, my face and my gun come out of cover so I can finally engage the enemy. There's my cat. Meow. Komm mal her, du kommst jetzt auf Kamera. Ja, du kommst jetzt auf Kamera. So, as you can probably tell by now, we've presented the enemy with a huge target before we could even see him. And that is the main thing, bless you, that I want to solve here. So, here's how a good peek would be. First, the peeker sets his stance, a wide stance with the feet towards the threshold. He has his rifle outside of his shoulder. He leans over his strong foot, putting all that weight on this foot. And that way, the thing that penetrates the threshold first is his rifle and his head. So he can see and shoot at any enemy that he might see. And so there's no time advantage for the enemy that might have seen, for example, his foot first, if he peeked in the wrong way. And the sentence that I want you to remember for this is basically be aware of your body. Be aware of how your body is positioned, because I see a lot of airsoft noobs that are too overstimulated by their gear and their rifle to even care about how their body is, positioned. And they might not even notice that their knee is penetrating out of the doorway and they're painting a huge target for the enemy without even noticing it. But you can be as aware as you want of your body. How do you actually peek a doorway or a threshold? Well, as soon as you decide that you want to peek this corner or threshold, you set up a wide stance, depending on how much time you have obviously, with your feet pointing towards the threshold. This makes sure that if the camera is the threshold, if my feet are this and my leg is this, if I lean outward, then I bend like this. But if I were to have my feet pointed outwards of the threshold, then my knee would bend also if I put my weight on that. And what tends to happen is that my knee penetrates the threshold before anything else from my body, and I also paint a bigger target for the enemy. So obviously you want to avoid that. So keep your feet pointed towards the threshold. Let's say that you want to lean to your right side. You must make sure that your right foot is forward facing and that your right foot and your right shoulder are on the same vertical line. Then you put your rifle outside of your shoulder and you make sure that you're already ready to fire when you peek out of the corner. And then you must imagine it in a way where the line that is between the shoulder and the foot leans to the right. And because your knee is attached to your hip, the thing that penetrates the threshold first and only should be your shoulder, your rifle, and your head. Because, as I said, because your rifle is outside of your shoulder, your elbows aren't showing either. Then, when you've assessed that there's no enemy there and you want to peek further, you pull in your left foot.
Hi guys, mandatory editing blowing intervention here. In the following part, I explained the way to maneuver after you peeked so badly that I just wanted to redo that. You pull your left foot towards your right foot, but then you obviously need to extend your right foot out again. But what you don't want to do is to overextend your right foot to where it is exposed without you being able to see the enemy that might already be seeing your foot. So what you do is you simultaneously move your foot and your head and rifle just a little bit more at the same time, and then you lean over that right foot again. And then this process just repeats and repeats itself again until you've pied the entire room or threshold of that matter.
So, you've now maybe engaged your first enemy and you're in a gunfight with the second or third enemy that was sitting in that hallway. You obviously would want to take cover from time to time because the enemy is also shooting back at you. And what tends to happen is that when you peek 1 or 2 times, the enemy kind of like programs himself to automatically aim at where you were peeking first. So if you were peeking in a standing position, he puts his sights on exactly the position that you peeked from at the exact height. And you can actually use this to your advantage because you can just alternate the height from which you peek by lowering your body, kneeling or laying down, and peeking again to surprise your enemy. And by the time that he has put his sights on your new position or height, you've already shot at him and he's out now. In my opinion, there are 4 positions: standing, middle height, so standing while slightly bending over, kneeling, and kneeling low. What is important to mention here is that when you're kneeling, when you're bending over to the right side, your right knee should be on the ground, because otherwise the right knee would protrude. How is that spelled? Because Otherwise, that knee would protrude before or just with your rifle, and that would paint a bigger target for your enemy. So keep your outer knee on the ground. This also helps with achieving the lower kneeling position, because there you stretch out your non-kneeling leg a little bit more to give yourself a little bit more stability when going in that lower position. So yeah, that's everything I have for you. Check out my Instagram. I've also made a Discord server, link in the description. And until we see each other next time, LARP.